ladies and gentlemen, the incredible magic from Chicago, Mr. J. Marshall.
Good evening. My name is Jay Marshall, as you've just been told. I'm one of Chicago's better, cheaper acts. I have a little routine that's called the Triumph of Industry Over Talent, or Nothing Spread Thin. It introduces a new style of comedy. No laughs, just intellectual nods and deep breathing. I like to start my part of a program with a bang, so you know what's coming. And now we need a needle. Oh, I know this. I heard him say it. What you do is... Oh, really? I was sewing a few balloons together. I was hoping to start with a bang. Well, that's the best we can do. Now I'll tell a story. It's a strange, I've a strange story. It's one called The Devil Wears a Jaunty Cap. Actually, it's a Spanish story. In Spanish, it's El Diablo del Sombrero de Tres Pecos. You see, a fellow wearing a hat like this walked into a hotel in Mexico. He walked up to the desk clerk and said, "Desk clerk, would you page Juan Escudero?" Well, the desk clerk doesn't do the paging. He called, "Bellboy." The bellboy came over wearing a square sort of pillbox hat. He walked around the lobby saying, "Juan Escudero, Juan Escudero, Juan Es..." For those who don't know, Juan Escudero is the famous Mexican bullfighter. And a bullfighter has a hat that looks like this. Ole! But unfortunately, that afternoon, the bull ring, a bull with a horn, made a hole in Juan. He died, and so did the joke. They had a funeral service conducted by the bishop. Juan's army buddies got together and gave him a military funeral. They wore overseas caps like this, and they fired a salute over his grave. You see, Juan had been a soldier. Well, even as a small boy, he had liked to play soldier. And as a small boy playing soldier, he had a hat that looked like this. If you do not believe the story is true, you may read it in this very newspaper. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the black and white cane, I shall wrap it in the black and white paper, and if the newspaper's been read, magicians say the cane will turn to red. I used to say, "What's black and white and red all over?" When I was a boy, they used to say a newspaper. Today's generation has creative answers. A bloody zebra, wounded nun, skunk with a diaper rash. I don't even ask the question anymore. Look, black and white cane goes into the black and white paper. Oh, I hope no one here is colorblind. Otherwise, if they are, they'll miss this. I don't know. I'll do something else. That'll get rid of the problem. I was looking. I thought there might be a job for an out-of-work magician. Oh, well. I said I'd tell stories, and I'll tell one now. Who here knows the story of Jack and the Beanstalk? Oh, good. I'm glad of that. I'm going to tell a story, and if I make any mistakes, you'll correct me, won't you? Say yes or no. Yes, good. All right, fine. If I remember, Jack's mother told Jack to mind the old cow. Is that right? And Jack traded the cow for a handful of magic beans. Is that right? And when Jack's mother came home, she cooked the beans for supper. Is that right? No? What happened? Oh, she threw Jack out the window. Oh, threw the beans out the window. That's what it was. She threw the beans out the window, and the beans grew up during the night into a beanstalk. And would you believe that that's what we've got here right now? I'm going to show you Jack's beanstalk growing all the way up to the giant's castle. Now reach on into the center and pull up on the centermost piece, and there it starts. It should grow all the way up to the giant's castle, which is somewhere Well, the giant can just about reach that. And timber! Now, there's a bright young man in the front row. Would you come forward? You're wearing a red... That looks great on television because it gets all the colors in. Try harder, it says. I'm going to tell... What's your name?
Glenn.
Glenn. I was hoping your name would be Jack because I'm going to show you how Jack got down the beanstalk. What Jack's mother did was she went into the garage and she got this little appurtenance, or whatever it is, and she... Incidentally, this is not just something to get Jack down the beanstalk. This also has a practical purpose. It's a fly trap. And with summer coming, you know, there may be a need for a fly trap. Let's see. It takes a bit of fumbling about because this invention has not been disclosed generally. We're going to get Jack down the beanstalk first. Yep. Would you hold that? Not too tight. Yeah, see, that's the camera that we're going to play to. So you do that, and I'll pull up like this, and sure enough, there's a ladder that'll get Jack down the beanstalk. Glenn, I told you I was going to show you how it could be used as a fly trap. In order to make it a fly trap, you have to put a little honey and molasses on each of these steps. And up about here, you tear out one of the steps. Well, the fly doesn't know that, and he misses that step. He falls down, and you stomp on him, and thank you, Glenn, for helping. We'll wind it up with a trick. I call it a trick. It's really sort of, well, it's an illusion. I'm going to show you the newspaper. If you remember the different advertisements or pages of the newspaper, if you will, and we're going to tear it up, or pretend to, and then see if we can put it back together right before your eyes. You might recognize some of these pages if you see them again. I call this an illusion because I don't really tear the paper at all. Many times people come backstage and say, it sounded as though the newspaper were being torn. And the illusion is enhanced by the fact you hold your hands wide apart at several stages in the trick. For example, that looks as though the paper has really been destroyed. If you didn't know, you would think that that newspaper was absolutely a disaster. It was nothing but sort of confetti, but I say I'll weld it back together. You don't believe me? Look, watch. Here it is. Let me show you that's the front, that's the back. Did you remember the ad on, well, let's see, here's the one. Was that the one you remembered? Perhaps the big yellow one on the inside. Or then there was another here that had a little touch of orange, or maybe it was the front page. I still hope there's a job for an out-of-work magician. Thank you very much.